Hey there. Welcome to Livestream Learn, where we help you learn to livestream. I'm your host, Amber Van Mosner. It seems like livestream technology is changing every single day. So today, we want to take a look at what's coming next. We're really excited to be joined by guests from RedShark News and Sony, who's debuting a brand new product series exclusively with Livestream Learn. Let's get started. Welcome, guys. We're so excited to have you here. Joining me today is Peter Crithery and Takuro Emma from Sony, and Dave Shapton, Editor-in-Chief of RedShark News. Thank you so much for joining Livestream Learn.
Pleasure. Great to be here.
Yeah.
So, Peter, we'll start with you. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I started in production back in the 80s, shooting, editing for broadcast television in Sydney, Australia. Then I did that for 10 years, traveling the world doing some crazy stuff. And then I moved to New York in '94, I would guess, and then worked for one of the largest networks in Europe, based in New York Bureau, where, again, we traveled around the world doing a lot of production with filming, editing, asset management, and so forth, and then transitioned into Sony in 2005, where I've been ever since, and support engineering, marketing, and many different roles.
Great.
Because I wanted to jump onto the technology side of things.
Very cool. Takuro?
Okay, so I'm Takuro. Actually, I started Sony as an engineer, and I jumped into the marketing and planning side. So I kind of know both aspects of technology and marketing side, inside what's going on inside Sony. And after that, I came over here. So actually, I moved into the US in August, so it's like 1 month here. I'm getting used to it, and I'm kind of like it. So thank you.
Welcome. Dave?
Well, I'm Dave Shapton. I'm the editor-in-chief of RedShark News, which is the only daily updated online publication for the entire moving image industry. So what we mean by the moving image industry is everything from cameras, post-production, and distribution, which of course is streaming, which as we're going to see today is going to become massively important. I got into digital media in, I think, 1985, many decades ago, working with digital audio, and the great thing for me was that around that time, it was an almost impossible thing to do. So when you work with something at a time when it's almost impossible, you learn the fundamental aspects to the subject. So I like to think I have an intuitive feel about digital media. And now when you fast forward to today, the stuff we can do is incredible. And I think people sometimes don't realize how many millions of times more capable the equipment that we have today is. And we're going to see something in a minute, which is a very good example of that.
Yeah, that's a great segue. So Sony is debuting an exclusive look at their new product series with us. Should we go take a look?
Let's go take a look.
Yes.
All right. And here we are.
All right, so if you could just tell us a little bit of background about what Sony's been working on and sort of the vision behind these products.
Right, so Sony's core mission, the reason why we exist is we produce products and services for the production market, whether it's broadcast, episodic television, whether it's live streaming, is what we're going to talk about here today, and many other markets, OTT and corporate and house of worship and so on and so forth. You name it, we do it. Our core mission is really to focus on the production solution, not only standalone products, but products that talk to each other, whether it's through software, applications, media cloud services, which we also have in what's called C, where we can push directly from the camera to our cloud service, where you can online collaborate, editing, logging, storyboarding, and so forth, which is really, really cool. And interconnect everything together so that they can communicate in a cohesive production ecosystem. And that's what an example that we're going to be showing you here today.
Yeah, so let's talk about what we have here on the table today.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have 3 new products here. These 3 products can be combined to make a system, but I want to briefly introduce each product going on. So first of all, we have a new camera here, which is called HXR NX5R. It's a traditional 3-chip handy camcorder with a 20x zoom. And also, we have a built-in LED video light on it, and SDI outputs and HDMI outputs. So essentially, it is packed with everything a videographer would need on the road to shoot any kind of circumstance they will go upon. Okay, so also we have a new small remote control here. The unique feature of this is you can control 3 cameras at the same time using the LAN connection with the camcorder.
Yeah. So one of the key points about this is when you buy a series of products from one manufacturer, you're guaranteed, especially with this example, that they can all talk to each other. So you'll have a cohesive production ecosystem that will be able to communicate, send commands, and operate, especially for a live streaming environment, which is really critical to ensure nothing goes wrong. So what Takuro was mentioning is the LAN control from the switcher via the remote to the cameras. You can be seamlessly switching between several different cameras and other independent devices like tablets and phones or computers, and feeding into this production system in a box, and then sending the program output to the live stream.
Great. So let's talk about how these all work together to produce live video, because this is a Wi-Fi enabled camcorder, correct?
Yes. Oh, I forgot to talk about this, right? Yes, this camcorder has built-in Wi-Fi. So using that Wi-Fi, the user can actually remote control this camera using a tablet or smartphone. And also, you can transfer all the recorded files using FTP. That's using the same Wi-Fi connection. So you don't need to just take off the SD card and plug it in the PC. It will just automatically send the files.
Right. So a couple of key points about that, as Takuro was mentioning. There's 2 types of file transmission capabilities. So we're recording 2 files at the same time. We're recording a proxy low-resolution file and a high-resolution file onto the camera, which then can be either live streamed via the Wi-Fi connection. Now, you can do it directly from the camera to a network. You don't necessarily have to go through a switcher to control multiple cameras and devices. You can actually go directly from the camera. And in addition to that, you can switch it to FTP mode. And as I mentioned before, you can upload to a cloud media service like the C that we have, or you can send it directly to a server, or whatever device that you want to go to for immediate review, approval, editing, and so forth. So these types of technologies, these capabilities, are a direct result of our engineering teams really focusing on the next evolutionary step in developing technology solutions like this. I do want to mention that we have a very scalable series of cameras and switches and servers that cater to every level of production, and this is a brand new example of coming in at a very cost-effective level for anybody to be able to stream at any location, because it's so portable and so high-featured and high quality.
Great. So let's talk a little bit more about this switcher and how it works with the remote tablet.
Okay. So before going to the tablet, I want to emphasize that when you connect these 3 products, it actually becomes a production system. And when a live event, you want the subject to notice that which camera is going on live and which camera is going to be the next one. And we have implemented a tally system onto this camcorder and onto this switcher. So when you press a certain button on the switcher, the tally lamp will lit onto the LCD on the camcorder, letting the subject know that you're on live. And that is very essential because, can you?
Yeah, I mean, tally, as many people may know, is typically a very high-end feature for very high-end production multi-camera studio applications and systems that we also offer. This is the first time it's been implemented at this cost-effective level. So what that means is you can have multiple cameras like we have here today, and the program output, the actual camera that's live, would have a red border on the viewfinder, which you can have facing the talent, and the camera that's about to go live can be green. So the talent will always know which camera is either coming up next or is currently live for the program output. That's what's called tally, and that's a huge feature for live stream productions, as you guys know.
Definitely something I could use.
Yeah, and also when you go into a system, we have a tablet here, and you can control everything the switcher can do using the Wi-Fi connection using this tablet. So you can just touch the screen to change the video inputs and mix it.
Right, so key point about that feature is everything can be remotely controlled. The entire feature set of the switcher, which is quite a bit, can be controlled and operated from the tablet or from a smartphone or a computer, from any device that's Wi-Fi network enabled within that area, which means that you can have hands-off, completely hands-off operation, not only of the cameras, but of the switcher itself, and the operator can be, at a distance somewhere else and be controlling the entire production remotely. And again, that's a feature that we're really excited about because it really hasn't happened at this level before. And then it's all ties in with the remote, where you can sync roll the cameras for ISO recording and at the same time operate zoom, exposure, and other types of camera control remotely with the controller here via the LANC connection. And also the fact that we can record directly in the switcher the line cut of the live show, so you'll have an edited version of the show which you can then immediately upload to your platform of choice. But the important point is to keep in mind that you're also ISO recording in the camera at the high quality and with the proxy level of the recording, which then can be utilized later for editing and for different utilization, archiving, and so forth. Because sometimes in a live switching environment, you could miss an action. Right? So the operator could be too late or just simply not capture something. It's all being captured on the camera, locally recorded, which can be taken advantage of later. So a huge amount of flexibility in a very cost-effective and highly portable production system.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for sharing this exclusively with our Livestream Learn audience.
Glad to do it.
When is this available to consumers?
Yeah, not yet. It's coming soon, within a few weeks, and we'll make the announcement when ready. It's still going through some final polishing, and we're getting feedback. One key point I want to mention, it's all firmware updatable technology. So whatever feature set is implemented on day one is a direct result of what people need. But as we continue to get requests, like we do with many other products in our ecosystem, we can update the technology later because it's highly programmable. So that's another key point we wanted to get across.
Very cool. Let's check back in with Dave on stage.
Let's do it. All right. Hey, Dave.
Yay, we're back.
Good, brilliant.
How you doing?
Good.
So, Dave, you see new products like this all the time on RedShark News. What do you think about this new product series?
Well, it's pretty amazing, and the fact that it looks like a slick, finished product, which it is, sometimes diverts people away from the awareness that, a decade ago or even 5 years ago, this simply would not have been possible. So we live in a climate where technology is improving, not smoothly, somewhat erratically, but at a very, very fast rate. And so what this means is that in the last few years, the ability to integrate or incorporate more components, more functionality in a small piece of equipment at a affordable price leads you to something like this. So don't be deceived by the fact that it's so compact and looks simple to operate, which it is. Inside is an absolute powerhouse of technology. There's some very nice touches like the ability to record onto the SD card and the ability to go back later and re-edit your individual camera feeds. That's fantastic because that's a security feature. It means that if somebody does miss key or if an unexpected event happens that you would have liked to have incorporated, you can go back and find which camera captured it. So it's very important to stress that this is so much more than just a camera with a streaming output. It's a complete multi-camera production system. And it seems to me it's so closely integrated, you could almost call it a multi-camera streaming appliance. And again, that's not to demean it, that's a compliment because it works together so well as an ecosystem. It is essentially a streaming appliance that you take in a bag or a small flight case, set it up, and you have the whole thing. But I can't emphasize how much of an advancement it is over what you would have had even 5 years ago, certainly 10 years ago, where you would have spent hours, timing the cameras, calibrating everything, and then you'd have an immensely complicated, pretty expensive switcher, and probably you wouldn't have had the streaming technology at all. And certainly you wouldn't have had the ability to do what Livestream does, which is to take a feed and somehow make it available to the entire globe. So that's the other thing which, I'm immersed in this stuff all the time, but I have to keep reminding myself that it is actually possible to send a program like this, as we're doing now, to the entire globe with no fuss, just a bit of rehearsal, and you have to have some lights and you have to have all the usual stuff, good audio. Those are skills you still need. But the point is that you're in a position to do something that would have needed millions of dollars just a few years ago. So well done, Sony. It looks like a fantastic achievement to me.
So that's a great segue into my next question. Looking at this technology and all the technology that's been developed this year in live video, what can we predict in terms of what's coming down the line? We know that this technology multiplies year over year. What kind of things do you anticipate seeing 5 to 10 years from now in live video tech?
Well, in terms of the hardware, I think the hardware will keep up with the trends, which are to higher resolution, to high dynamic range, HDR. And so in a sense, that'll seem, transparent, because it'll just be the same thing, but dealing with much, much better quality video. This is already HD, which is fantastic. But the other trend is that because of increases in bandwidth, increases in connectivity, live streaming will become absolutely ubiquitous. So we are at a point in history where we will see an expansion in live streaming in ways and in quantities that we would never have predicted before. So this is, to go back to the new Sony products, it couldn't be a better time to launch this. And I know, what's Sony going to be doing? They won't tell you, because obviously that's marketing and they want to wait until it's time to announce their new products whenever they are. But what I do know from talking to Sony is that they always try very hard to make the very, very best use of what is available now. It's all very well talking about the future, but bandwidth now, a lot of the time, is limited. You get obviously very high bandwidth in cities like this and reasonable sized towns. If you live outside of a town, certainly in the US, you will have less bandwidth. So it's very important to work on things like the video codecs and quality and noise reduction and optimization, so that you can take the very good picture from the camera and deliver it in the best possible way, in a way that's scalable for people who haven't got the best bandwidth, because it's very important. People understand if they haven't got fantastic broadband, they understand they're not going to see the best picture, but what they have to see has to be recognizable, and the sound has to be intelligible and stuff like that. And I know that that's what Sony spends a lot of time doing. Because it just works, you don't realize that work that goes into this.
Right.
But that's a major part of what you guys do, I would imagine.
Right, yeah. And from a manufacturer's standpoint, I mean, we've been servicing the broadcast and production industries for decades, and we have a long experience in developing these technologies at every level. And we have the high end. We have the high end in the switches, the servers, the cameras, and many other systems and products solutions. But we're able to take that engineering know-how from guys like Takuro and evolve that technology to a price point with a more limited feature set, obviously, that's required for the lower budget operations, and produce something like this as a result of all those years of experience and know-how working with the higher end products and solutions that we continue to do every day.
Because these gigantic switches that you see in the OB trucks, and they look amazing, they have functionality in them that you wouldn't dream about, but what you do get with this is you get Sony's background and thousands of man years working with digital video. You get the essence of that in this with more limited functionality, but within the scope of what we're talking about, which is a multi-camera production for small setups. You get an incredible amount of capability in a piece like this. The other thing I really like is the fact that you can abstract the UI onto an iPad or a tablet.
That's correct.
And that means that you don't have to run long cables if it's not feasible. You can just have the switcher maybe up in the roof, tied to a curtain rail or something like that within health and safety regulations.
Well, actually, I think one of the key points to this, the flexibility and the portability, literally one person could set it up.
Yeah.
And we spent an enormous amount of time in planning and engineering to Kuro's benefit and appreciation in removing the complexity out of the workflow and simply having a few buttons that you could select from, downstream keying, the ability to have cell phones and computers and other types of devices as an input source in addition to the cameras.
Yes.
You could really turn a multi-camera live production into something quite special that you just couldn't do at this level before. I mean,
it's really important to emphasize for people who are new to this, and there will be people watching who are new, they've just come to this broadcast because they want to learn about streaming. They might not be familiar with the idea of a switcher, and it's easy to explain that it's a way of selecting which camera the viewer is going to see on their screen. But it's important to understand that with a piece of equipment like this, it doesn't have to be a camera. It can be it can be a laptop running a PowerPoint deck.
Could be a cell phone.
Yeah.
Could be a cell phone.
Yeah.
With built-in keying, you can do the weather forecaster kind of trick, where you have a different background.
Yeah.
It's all in that box.
Right. And in terms of resolution, 4K, high dynamic range, the topics you mentioned earlier, we're already doing that with the higher end systems and solutions. But another key point we should mention is the codec technology gets better. We spent a lot of time developing the H.264 encoding environment with the chipset that we have both in the camera and in the switcher, because again, the switcher is also recording. The codec technology will continue to evolve and how we can apply that in higher levels of picture quality. And I think another important point is the quality of service, where you could be in bandwidth challenged environments and you could experience packet loss and compression artifacts, where we actually, in the higher end systems, we have some secret sauce that can correct those issues on the receive side, what we call QoS, quality of service. So, over time, it's just going to get better and better and better.
Well, sorry, with apologies for being unbelievably nerdy, you mentioned H.264. Most people think of that as like, a thing, a set standard. It's actually a set of standards. It's a very wide and deep toolkit, and there are hundreds of parameters that you can tweak and optimize within it. So when Sony say they're working with H.264, they're not saying, we've just implemented it. They're saying they have worked to match those tweakable parameters to be optimized for this process. And again, that's a lot of work.
Right, and the other key point to that is that the camera can dynamically select what we call the megabit, the data rate, based on the bandwidth of the environment that it is detecting. So it can dynamically allocate data to the stream within the constraints, or not so much constraints as the case may be, for the transmission, and that's another example. So the way that it's going to continue to migrate is we have software and technologies in other areas that we could apply to this as well. And one of the examples is something we call Hawkeye, which is a live motion tracking, dynamic tracking software system that we are currently using in sports applications and other types of environments where you have a lot of movement that needs to be automatically tracked by the camera, and the algorithm is doing that. And so that's another example of where this could...
And I'd imagine, like a lot of Sony and other manufacturers' equipment, this is to some extent upgradable. The firmware is upgradable.
Right. So pretty much everything we produce today, I'd say almost everything is programmable. Everything is updatable, which is a huge benefit to everybody, the market, and so forth. As the engineers sit down and they plan out, where can we take this? Where does it need to go? Not only from what they hear from the field, but what they know internally that could be developed. And if it's possible and it can be programmed, it's likely to happen in the future. So it doesn't mean you're buying a camera or a switcher or any other type of solution from us. It's a fixed subset of features. Those features will continue to grow and migrate as you need more from what you're doing.
So I want to remind, for those watching at home, we're going to take questions from you any minute now. So if you have any questions, please get them in the chat. And just before we do that, I'd love for all of you to sort of look into your crystal ball for a second. In 2017, as people are planning their budgets, as businesses and production companies are thinking about the year ahead, what should they be thinking about in terms of planning their live streaming and their live video events? What's coming down the pipeline that you think that companies need to anticipate?
You want to take a crack at that first? Or?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the obvious thing to say is plan to get equipment like this, get whatever is appropriate for the kind of broadcast that you have in mind. But the other things I would say are simply do allocate some budget for lighting, allocate some budget for audio, boring stuff perhaps, but absolutely essential, because if you don't get the lighting right, it'll look terrible. don't get the audio right, people can't hear what's being said, so that makes it worthless as well. So spend more time than you might imagine on getting those things right. In terms of actually doing the live broadcast, just rehearse it as far as you can, and then just go for it. Just go into it, do it. The great thing, sorry, I'm a little bit off message here, but it's worth saying this. The great thing about doing a live broadcast is first of all, it's an appointment to view. People will understand that they have to be there like you guys are here and the people at home because it's happening at this time. Second thing is, don't worry if it goes wrong, because when it's gone, it's gone. You know, so it's actually easier if you're planning a content campaign. Do consider live broadcast because it's easier in a sense, in a very practical way, which is that once it's done, it's done. And whereas if you record something with the intention of post-producing it, making it look perfect, that can take exponentially longer and be more expensive and can be a deterrent to doing the next thing.
And it loses authenticity.
Loses authenticity as well. So you've got, the last thing on that tack is that obviously the audience can interact as if with you guys here in the audience, people at home can interact with us and be part of the show. And I always think it's good to know that for people watching at home, that we are sitting here now having this conversation at this time. So,
gonna hold up a newspaper.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, as far as planning for the future, you had to take account of those things I was talking about as much in the future as you do now.
Yeah, and I think from a manufacturer's standpoint, better, higher picture quality, looking ahead, planning for the future technology trends, whether it's 3G, 4G, 5G, or whatever the G. We're always planning ahead for the future bandwidth environments, and we'll be continuing to adapt the technology to whatever comes along. I mean, it's really that simple. All
right, great. Well, before we get to our Q&A, we want to remind you, if you're interested in a Livestream annual platform plan, Livestream Learn viewers get 20% off. If you type Livestream Learn 20 in the chat, someone will reach out to you immediately about getting 20% off your Livestream annual platform. So if you are interested, if we have convinced you today that you need to get ready for live streaming in 2017, please type Livestream Learn 20 in the chat and someone will reach out to you right away. All right, let's get to questions. I know we have a lot of them. Joe, can I get the font up on that? Or I'm a little blind. Thank you. Magic of live video.
So this is the key of live streaming. It's interactive, right?
Very interactive.
Absolutely.
So the first question, how configurable is the Wi-Fi connection on the new Sony products?
How configurable? Very configurable.
Yeah, it's pretty easy. You just it's the same as using iPhone at home, iPad at home. Just have a SSID, a password, and that's it. You're connected to the camcorder or switcher.
Yeah, the same rules that apply as Takuro mentioned, whether you're connecting a cell phone or any type of Wi-Fi enabled device at home, it's exactly the same. It's really not rocket science at all.
Yeah. So actually, actually for the camcorder, we have NFC, so you just touch the camcorder with the Android smartphone.
Near-field communication is what Takuro is mentioning. So they can be touched. If it has a near-field communication capability, you just physically touch the products together and they're instantly communicating.
Great. Another question, will new features on the new cameras be available on older but not vintage models? For example, the PMW300, given that it has Wi-Fi capabilities as well.
Generally speaking, it really depends. It depends on the plan for migrating the technology along into new products that may have hardware limitations prior to, like any technology evolution. So the answer is it really depends. It's case by case. It doesn't mean it can't happen, but it also could mean that we could do it. If it's firmware programmable, and if the hardware can support those features, then chances are it could be done.
Yeah. And then will it support PTZ heads to control?
Actually, right now we don't have any PTZ direct control from the switcher right now. But yes, the important thing is we receive these kind of voice of customers. So please tell us what you need.
Firmware updatable is the key to that answer.
We also have a question about price point. I know you said this is a really budget-friendly option.
Yeah, the switcher will be under 3,000. That's what we can tell you right now. So it's quite a remarkable price point for what this will be able to do. Is he referring to the switcher or the camera?
It just says, what is the
Yeah,
price?
switcher under 3,000.
Yeah.
And more information to come about the camera.
Yes.
Okay, another question about compatibility with NDI and adding cameras through it.
NDI.
NDI is the New Tech Network Protocol.
Again, protocols are always on the table where they're being discussed for compatibility, and if there's a demand for it to be added, we'll investigate it and add it if it can be done.
Cool. And somebody else wants to know if you can attach an external drive, Thunderbolt, USB, etc., to expand the capture of live content to the mixer.
Actually, yeah, we have a USB port. You can connect the hard disk drive to it. Right now, you cannot record directly to the hard drive. You can record it on the SD card and transfer to the hard drive. But yeah, if you want to directly record it, that's a request we have right now. So I'm going to think about it.
It's a good suggestion.
Yeah.
And then there's another question about capacity for the mixer for capture.
Well, it's based on the capacity of the SD card.
That's right, yeah.
Okay. All right.
You could keep going as long as the card can
Yeah, right. A lot of people have questions.
They're good questions.
Yeah, a lot of people are clearly excited about this product. So to wrap up, I just want to thank our guests again for being here. This is so exciting, having people from Sony and RedShark News, which we're a huge fan of. So just to wrap up, we want to remind you that this equipment is perfect for live streaming. It's a great live streaming solution. It's great for remote control in a live stream solution, so you can be closer to an internet source or whatever you need. But yeah, did you guys want to give us like a little something to take away, to wrap up? Maybe Dave, any closing thoughts?
Well, I mean, I just have the best job in the world because, we get to see this stuff early and, the evidence is incontrovertible that the future is arriving faster than we ever thought. Just don't expect it to arrive smoothly. Don't expect it to happen like regularly every Tuesday. And occasionally you get an absolute breakthrough. And if you think about it, streaming is an absolute breakthrough because, as we said before, what you're able to do is from a room like this, you're able to broadcast, or stream, we should say, to the entire world. And just the fact that we can do that is worth contemplating because it's incredible.
Yeah, I think one of the key points specifically about this system is, again, one of the main advantages is one manufacturer is designing all of the elements that we can ensure a seamless communication. That's a very key point for any multi-camera, especially for a live environment. You have to make sure all of the components can communicate seamlessly together, and that's something that we can assure we can do because we did it. So that's a key point we wanted to get across.
Great. Well, I want to thank my guests again, Takuro Ima, Peter Kritheri, and Dave Shapton. Thank you for watching Livestream Learn. We'll be back again next month with more about live streaming. Thank you.